So now that we have the four structures pretty much blocked out in terms of how much space they're going to require, we're going to go ahead and set up a few more sheets that will allow us to do more of our detail work. So I'm going to go to level 1. And in this level, we've already generated this section. One thing we want to do before we kind of finalize these detail sheets and their locations is to check and make sure that the section is showing all of the information that we're going to need to see. So I'll now go to the reflected ceiling plan for level 2. This might be a better place to have a look at this. So what I'm going to do is check and make sure I'm not cutting through any of the structural elements that I've added. Everything looks pretty good. This is a little bit close, and so I'm going to look for a place to move that so I have a little bit more space between the structural element and what I'm showing. I'm shifting it up so it's like in the center of the waffle slab. So 1, 2, 3, the fourth one, and from there it looks like I have a pretty clean area to view across the whole section. Now you can see everything that is between that section cut and these two arrows will appear in the view. And I'm going to pull this back so that it doesn't include the wall that's on any of these walls that are going to be on column line B. When we do these section details, sometimes if you see too much in the distance, it can be a little bit distracting. So this should resolve that problem. Now I'm going to return to level 1. And here, what I'm going to start doing is bringing in some more of these reference planes, because we're going to have lots of these little bubbles and we want to make them look somewhat consistent and hopefully save ourselves a little bit of time. Before I begin making those reference planes, though, I want to show you what one of these sheets might look like. What we have here is a wall section, a section showing the column at the middle of the structure, and a series of plan details. This is a corner, this is that center column, and this is a reflected ceiling plan detail. So these reference lines are going to help us to sort of set up these call outs. Okay, so now that I am on my level 1 plan, I will proceed with drawing in these reference planes. So I would start with one drawn at column line 3, and I'd bring it down a little bit lower so you can easily grab it. I'm going to click on it and I'm going to move that first one over 5 feet and enter. Okay, and I'll make a copy of it 6 inches over. Okay, I'll make a copy of the first one that I made 10 feet over. Okay, and now I'm going to make a reference line, a reference plane rather, on column line number 4. And I'm going to move that one over, same distances, move it 5 feet. Probably could have copied the ones I just made. 6 inches. And that one on the right, I'm going to copy it over 10 feet. Okay. Now I'll make some in the horizontal direction. So these probably should be made all the way across the plan. I'll start at column line C and drag one over here. And then for that one, let me grab it over here, copy, or actually move it first. This one will be 2 feet up. And same thing, I'm going to copy this one 6 inches up. And I'm going to copy the bottom one. Let's see here, 7 feet. So it'll be slightly off center in that window. Okay. Now I'm going to copy a few more times here. I'm going to click on the bottom one, copy, make that one 3 feet up. This one here, I'm going to copy 6 inches. Okay. Now I'm also going to make some horizontal lines in the lower right-hand corner for my corner detail. So I'll go to the reference plane again, and let's see if I can copy these. It might be a little bit faster. Copy from column line here to column line B. Okay. Now I'm going to make a copy of this one. That one is going to be 8 feet up. And this one here, I'll copy up 6 inches. Those are all of them in, those will be the plan details from the sheet I showed you just a few minutes ago, where I had the 3 details on the right. Now I'm going to need to create some, another set for the wall section that's going to be on the left wall or on the west wall. Okay, now those ones will be copies of these 3. So let's see if I can copy these in one process here. Select all 3 by holding down Control, and I'll go from column line 3 to column line 2. Okay, so these are the ones that will appear on each of these. So you can make copies of these 3 sets. You know, you can do it in one process, or I could just make copies of 3 of these lines and then snap at each of these column lines. So copy that one. I'm going to hold down Control, and I'll just go copy from each of these column lines all the way across. Now I'm in the long section looking north, and I'm going to create another reference plane. I want to be above this parapet wall here. So I'll start off by tracing over level 3. And then I'll move that one up. Let's try 5 feet. Okay, and I'll make a copy of that 6 inches above that. Okay, now for the bottom, those are going to vary. You need to be deep enough that we capture whatever the foundation condition is for those bubbles. So for now, I'm just going to leave those ones open. Okay, now I'm in the section. I'm going to go to the View tab, and I'm going to create a call out. Okay, I'll snap to, let's see here, the upper corner here. And I'm going to zoom down here a little bit. For this one, I just want to make sure that I've captured the bottom of the footing. Now these may be adjusted. So we're just kind of roughly getting them in position right now. Now I'm also going to take this call out bubble, and I'm going to move it up higher here. I'll place it right on that reference plane that I created. Try to center it maybe between the column bubbles. Okay, now what you'll see here is that a call out has been created under section looking north. And because there's going to be a bunch of call outs here, I'm going to start to rename them so I can find things more easily later. I'll start this one off with masonry, and I will call it wall section. Okay. Now, before I make copies of this, I'm going to go to this wall section. Double click on it, and it will take me to, there it is, masonry wall section. All right, similar to how we've been working previously, one thing that we're going to do is increase the detail level. So you should see more details appearing in the wall section. And we're going to change the scale. Now, details, really almost like the bigger you make them, the better, just because you can show a lot of information. Things that are relatively close together would be difficult to do if you were trying to detail the wall section at 1/8 of an inch. So we're going to change this to 3/4 of an inch. And you'll notice that the graphics have changed a little bit. They have a little finer detail, right? So we'll be adding notes and dimensions and other annotations and adding more line work to these sections. Okay, so I'll go back to the section looking north. And I'm going to make a copy of this one from column line 2 to column line 3. Okay, so I should see now that there is a duplicate of the masonry one, and I'm going to rename this one. And I'm going to do this for each copy that I make, just so I can kind of keep everything straight and not get confused. Section at name of that one. Okay. And basically you're going to proceed all the way down the row. You'll do masonry, you'll do one for the steel, you'll do one for the precast, or 2 for each of them, and 2 for the mass timber. So I'm going to go to this section. I just want to double check and make sure the scale is right and the detail level is right. Since I changed those settings for the wall section, now every copy should be the same. Okay, so I'll proceed with making copies of these and going through the process of renaming them. So I made a copy of my wall section one to create a wall section for the steel structure. And as you can see, I'm going to need to expand that bubble so that includes the caisson. And I'll go ahead and rename that before I make more copies. So now this one is called steel wall section, and I'll make a copy of this one for the one that will be for the column. Okay. So the copy is called steel wall section, and I'll rename that one to section at column. And again, just repeat the process for the other 2. Okay, so now I've created the other 4. And you can see I've named them either wall section or section at column, right? And I've had to stretch some of these call out bubbles to include the complete foundation. Now for the plan details, right now I'm on level 1. And I could make these call outs on this small plan, but because we have an intermediate call out bubble, I think it would be best to go to those enlargements and create them on those plans. So for example, I'm going to place these call outs on level 1. But I'll have to go to each of these enlarged drawings. Now I won't put them on all of them. You know, you could copy them to each of these sheets, but we'll just leave them on the level 1 plans for the 2 details that are plan details. And we will add the reflected ceiling plan details to the ceiling plan ones as well. All right, so right now I'm in level 1 masonry, and I'm going to go ahead and create a few call outs. Let's see here. Let's make this one first. So I'll go to call out, and I'm going to make my call out from this point here to this one right here. Okay, and I'm going to need to move the tag here. I'll just pull it down to the lower right-hand corner. Actually, let's do it on the lower left-hand corner so it can be consistent with the other ones I made. Right, so you should see now that there's a masonry call out 1. And I'm going to make another one that will be for the lower right-hand corner of the structure. I'll put call out, and I will make my bubble to these outer lines. And I'm going to pull this to the lower left. Right, now I'm going to go now to the sheet for, let's see, this is masonry structure floor plans. And what I should see when I go to the level 1 plan is that these call outs are now appearing. Okay, go back to masonry number 1. Now, for these, you're going to have to create, oh, that was the footing. I want to go, you're going to have to change the settings for these. We are not able to copy them from one drawing to the next. So unfortunately, this is a little bit of tedious work. You want to change the detail level and the scale. And we're going to do a couple of things. We're going to drag that clipping plane in here. Oops. You know what? You're going to need to do this step first. Click on the column bubble, bring it down, bring those in first, and then drag the clipping plane to be a little bit smaller. Pull all of these in. Click on clipping plane, and I will bring these into my reference lines. These don't have to be perfect. You won't be able to see them at the detail, but you want them to look somewhat uniform. So we'll add notes and dimensions, and left a little bit more space on the bottom for some of that annotation type information. I'll go to masonry call out number 2. Again, change 3/4 and up the level of detail. Go around, click on these column bubbles. Sometimes they're a little difficult to place where you want them. Try again, click on my bubble, grab it right here and try to place it. Not cooperating. There you go. So it may take you a little fiddling to get it in position, but the goal is that these are here and we cut the clipping plane back. When you finish, it should look like this. And again, there's a little bit more space on the bottom for detail notes as needed. So you'll go to level 2 or level 1.2 for the steel structure and repeat the same thing. Make your column bubble, make your call out for the smaller rectangle down here and make one down here. So here's the one for the steel center column. And here's the one for the steel structure corner column. And now I'll make the call outs for the precast structure. There they are, and now I'll go make revisions to the call outs. There's the center column with the revisions made. And there is the corner column for the precast. The last one is the mass timber. So there's call out number 2 and call out number 1 for the mass timber. The last set of call outs will be on the reflected ceiling plan. So I'm going to go to here. The reflected ceiling plan details, I'm actually going to have to go to level 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, and 2.4. So it's the same process. I'm going to go ahead and create a call out here. Okay, and this one will be a little bit different because I need to make sure that the notation is clear enough. So I'm actually going to have to bring this one kind of outside of the plan. Otherwise, it will be too hard to read the numbers. So when I go to my sheet for the reflected ceiling plan, let's see here, level 2 reflected ceiling plans. You can see that the call out has been stretched outside. Okay. Now, same process. I'll go back up to the ceiling plans. I've got this masonry call out number 1. I'm going to change my detail to 3/4 of an inch and refine the detail level, finish level. And I'll stretch my column bubbles and place them there. A little closer. Okay. And stretch the column lines in a little bit. It's snap to everything that I don't want it to. Now we'll bring it as close as you can to that cropping window. And then stretch the window down a little bit. Give a little space between the column bubble and the edge of all that information that you've seen with the ceiling. Okay, so that is one of them. And I'll go back to my level 1 masonry or level 2 masonry blow up, and I'll repeat the process for the steel structure. Notice how that line, the reference line, is on top of this. I think I'll just drop my bubble a little bit lower. And we want to make sure we bring it up to the top one here. And we want to bring this, click on the bubble and drag target so it's not on top of other content. Go to that call out and make the same changes that I made to the masonry one. So you'll see with this one that I want to make sure I see the full joist in the detail. So this one may be a slightly bigger call out. Bring this one in. So, okay, so same here. You want to catch a little of that. So if you're not using the reference lines for this one, that's fine. Right, I'll go on to the precast. reflected ceiling plan, my call out. Click on the bubble and drag the target out. Maybe I don't want to bring it all the way outside of the structure, but this should be good enough that you can read the numbers when they start to populate. Precast call out number 1. Change the scale. Detail level. Drag the column bubbles in. That sheet that these are going on is going to be pretty crowded, and that's why we're kind of going through and making these little adjustments. I want to make sure that we can get as much on the sheets as possible. Okay, one more will be the mass timber. And that should do it. Let's take a look at that reflected ceiling sheet. So you can see those 4 targets are now appearing on the floor plans. Now what we're going to do is we're going to create a new sheet. So I'm at the sheets in the project browser, and I'm going to click on new sheet. And we'll use the same title block. Okay, now the title for this one must have like passed the prompt to enter this, but this is going to be called masonry structure details. And my sheet number is going to be A301. Okay, so we should see that new sheet over here. Now, what's going to go on the sheet? Those callouts that you just created. I'm going to start with, and by the way, if you drag them in the order that you want them to be, they will take on the numbers chronologically. So my first detail is going to be this one on the left. It's going to be the section call out. I'm going to minimize some of these so I don't have so many things to browse through. So I've got, this will be all the masonry stuff. My masonry wall section will be here. I'll just place it over here on the left for now. And my masonry section, that column, will also go on the sheet. Then I'm going to start bringing in the other call outs. I'll expand that ceiling plan. Masonry call out, reflected ceiling plan is going to go in the upper right here. Go back up to my plan stuff. There's masonry call out number 1. That's going to be the center column. I'm going to go next. And the third plan detail will be call out number 2 for the masonry. Now, one thing that you'll notice is that these details are kind of big. And so it's going to take a little bit of time to bring them closer together and get them so they all fit on the sheet. But it's better to go with as big a scale as you can when you're doing these kinds of details. So 3/4 of an inch will work really well. And I'm going to show you how you can take these tall wall sections and begin to crop them so that they will fit on the sheet and show the information that you want to show. I'm just checking here, 3/4 of an inch equals a foot. all of them are at the proper scale. Now, the big picture is this, that when you're doing wall sections, most of the notations are going to happen around where you have joints between different planes. So there'll be a lot of notes in this region up here, and there will also be a bunch of them on this lower portion. But we have a 2-story space in this case, and so there's a big chunk of the wall section that we don't really need to show, and we'll use a kind of cut line to indicate that. Same thing goes for this one. If we were to look at the steel call out, actually, let's go to the wall sections here. Sections, steel section. Let's look at the steel wall section quickly. We have here, you know, one set of detail notes that's going to be for where the roof comes into the wall, one where level 2 comes into the wall, one at the foundation, at the top of the foundation where the grade beam is and the caisson. And then we want to capture just a teeny bit of the bottom of this so that we can, you know, show all that. So we'll have actually 4 kind of sub details for this wall section. If we were to look at the precast wall section, we have one here, one group here, one here, and same thing. We want to show just the very bottom of this, just to give a sort of top and bottom condition for those piles. And when we go to the mass timber section, we're going to have 1, 2, and 3. So we can capture all of this in the one detail. Now you can make these basically subsections of the detail in the wall section itself, but I think it's best to do it in the sheets, because you want to always have the reference of, okay, how big is this sheet and how much cropping do I need to do? So that's why I've kind of placed these over on the side so I could have some kind of scale. Now, basically how this works is this: you click on the detail. Okay, so I'm going to back out of that. Okay, I'm in the sheet, double click on the detail, and now you're kind of in this editing mode for it. When I click on it, you're going to see when I kind of move my cursor around that I can cut out a big chunk of the detail. So for example, if I click on this and click on these little zigzaggies here, it basically crops that out, and then I can stretch them. Okay, now I want to make the detail fill the whole sheet. So, this will take a little bit of back and forth in getting this. So for the other sheets where I have 4 separate details, I won't be able to show as much of the wall here, but I have plenty of room on this one. All right, once you do that, and you kind of get enough information that you want to show, you're going to click on, you're going to drag it downward. Okay, same thing here. Drag this up a little bit. So this will easily fit on this sheet now. Okay, now for some of the wall sections, you may have to, really bring things in closer and really modify the cropping windows. The other thing that you want to do with these, so I'm going to double click outside. So now I'm in the sheet again, is we're trying to get, over clicked here. We're trying to get the levels to align across the top. So again, this will take a little bit of fussing around with. Maybe I want to try to bring this up and get them as close to aligned as possible. You see how this line comes across, and I can do the same thing with this one. Bring this down. Okay, and then I can begin to drag. Oh, I missed the line up. I want to bring this up. So level 1 aligns with the level 1 of the wall section. and then bring these as close as you can to aligning across the way too. You know, you'll see it wants to snap a little higher. Right, once you get those, you know, roughly in the scale you need it to, then you can kind of start to bring them into the chute. Oops. And when you move them around, you actually want to use the move command, because you can see it when I just dragged it, it basically shifted the view window. Okay, we want them all to come together, so use this move tool to bring them over. Right. For the line details, you know, you're really going to have to push and pull them. These titles can go much closer to the crop window. So that'll take a little bit of time to kind of get them in place. So here I am in the masonry structure detail sheet, and I'm just going to work on kind of getting things to fit and producing some alignments. You know, you can use the grid guides if you like, if that was helpful to you. You also could integrate or bring in some detail lines. So like, for example, if I want to align all of these column lines vertically, I can generate a detail line, and looks like these top two are already in alignment, but you can see this one is not. So I'll click on it and click on move, and then snap from the bottom of the column bubble to that line, and then I can erase the line. You know, we need to get these details fully on the sheet. So, you know, there's going to be a lot of sort of adjustments. You might start from the right side here, and these should all align because we were roughly using those reference lines to generate the boundaries of each of the details. But you might, for example, click on all of them and use the control key to group them, and slightly use the move command here, or the move tool, and move them over together. You know, look for some kind of consistent border dimension. You know, you can use the distance tool to check. Again, you could also generate more of these detail lines. Like, let's say I use the edge of the title border and I move that over, let's say, 1/2 inch. Yeah, 1/2 inch. And then I can use that to start to align things. And I can go along and, you know, click on the detail and drag some of these titles. Again, with the titles, you know, you can bring them really close to the bottom of this crop line. And then, you know, I would suggest that you look for a common place to align them on the left side. Perhaps you try to align the left of the circle with your crop window. Anyway, again, the whole goal, like in many of other drawings here, is just to maintain some kind of consistency in the graphics. This one here, I can move that one up closer. Oops. Click on the detail title and move, and up a little higher. Again, you want to try to maintain some consistency between the bottom of the joint and this one. Just drop the chest a little bit. Click on it, move, and bring it down just a little bit. And then, you know, align it again with the edge of the crop window. All right, and then, you know, once you've kind of gone through that, you're going to like start to move them down so that they're fitting into the sheet. They seem like they won't fit, but if you do bring all these titles up close and get them a little closer together, they they should fit fine. Another thing you might find helpful when you select them is to use the arrow keys to kind of nudge them in different directions. So I moved the top two up, and I've moved the bottom up as far as I can. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this detail title and overlap it onto the detail, and I'll just have to keep all my notes above that detail line. And drag these out so they align with the right-hand edge. So I can also use detail lines to, ensure that I'm aligning my levels. So I've got these two, and notice how I've got the bubbles also kind of tracking across. It should be at the same height. I'll erase this one, and I'll do the same thing as I go down. Now, generally speaking, I would try to fill the whole space if you can with these two section details. So bring the footings down lower, and we'll also need to bring these title lines up. So I'm in the editing mode for that section, and I'm going to use the arrow keys here to bring it down a little bit. Now the detail above should stay where it is. And then what I can do is sort of bring these a little closer. Okay, so everything up above has stayed the same. And then what I'll do is repeat the process for the one on the left. I'll click on here, and I will bring it down, trying to maintain the alignment of level 1. And then I can bring my tiles in, and I'll try to keep them in alignment with that call out too. And you can see it's generating alignment path lines. And to get that little tail to come back, I'll click on the detail itself, and then drag this and bring this one up. And same thing, click on the detail and drag the little tail in a little closer. And I'm going to bring this one down a little bit. And when you add the notes, you may make more little revisions to these alignments, but we're getting there. Now, if you're able to get these to align horizontally, you can eliminate the level 2 level 3 notation and level 1 and top of footing, because we have that information over on the right hand side. So it looks like I need to do a little bit more alignment for that level, and then I'll eliminate that. But basically what you would do is click on it, and enter into editing mode. I'm going to click on here, and I'm going to uncheck the box, and it'll disappear. So again, I have that reference over here, so I don't really need it here. Okay, so I've eliminated those 3 references, and I'm going to click on this detail, and I'm going to move it over just a little bit. And we want to make sure that you are selecting the whole detail and using that move tool. So everything goes. Now, we try to maintain about a 1/2 inch border on both sides, so it looks like they come back a little bit to the left. And again, feel free to use those grid guides if you feel like it's producing a better way of forming alignments. Let's see here. Last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring these level datums back into the window. I've got all of them brought over. So that's that sheet. And, after you've gone through this process, you'll be creating PDFs of each of these sheets. So you'll do one for the masonry structure, the steel, the precast, and the mass timber. So I'm going to go to my sheets, do a new sheet using the title block, and this one is going to be called Steel Structure Details. It will be sheet A302. And I'll go ahead and drag in those details. And remember, you want to bring them in the order that you'd like them to be. You can always change these, but it's a little easier to do ahead of time. So in other words, when I go to the sheet for A301, this was the first one brought in, this was the second, this was the third one, this was the fourth one, and this one was the fifth one brought in. So I'll use that same numbering process. My first one is going to be steel wall section. The second will be steel section at column. The third one is going to be the reflected ceiling plan for the steel. Let's place it over here. And then the call outs for the steel structure. Call out number 1. Call out number 2. And as I mentioned, so as we had for sheet number 301, here, we just have these 2 details. But for the steel structure details, we're going to have 1, 2, 3, and we want to capture a little bit of the bottom. We don't want to show that whole caisson because it's going to just take up too much space on the drawing. So it'll take a little fussing to get this one to align properly and show enough information. You may find it easier to go ahead and set up the sheet towards the right and then work out the section details. So I'll go through the same process of moving things and aligning them. I'll give a 1/2 inch border between the title block and my details. I'll start with the top one, the reflected ceiling plan detail, and then I'll work my way down till I've gotten everything kind of in a row. And I'll also use these detail lines to generate alignments between these column lines. So I've got the 3 details lined up. And by the way, these cropping windows here, you can edit them. You can turn them off. So if I go to, this is masonry call out 2. I can hide the crop region. So at the bottom along the status bar, I can click on that. And now when I go back to that sheet, if it bothers you that it's kind of hanging below the line, you can control the call outs this way. So I'm going to hide the crop region. Right. So when you make your PDF, if you prefer not to see the crop region of a particular detail, you can turn them off. Right, and I'll go ahead and begin working with the section details now. So as I mentioned, this one is a little bit more difficult because we're going to have multiple areas that get kind of cropped. So I will click here and delete that. And then what you can do is stretch it down and repeat that. You'll see those little zigzags appear. So now I have 3 zones that are being cropped. And I can keep proceeding this way. So I'm going to zoom in a little closer so you can see more detail. What do we want to include in each of them? Move this one up. For this detail, we don't need to show very much, just want to give some reference to the top and the bottom of the pier. But I'm just going to keep trying to bring these closer together so I put them all on the sheet. I don't need so much information at the top of this one. So I can moving it around a little bit, probably even a little less. Just be prepared that at some point you may need to edit these a little bit more. And almost have everything in here. Just move this one down. Now up. Probably this could be cropped a little bit more. And this last part, and try to maintain consistency between these details. It doesn't have to be perfect. All right, that's looking pretty good so far. Need to bring my column bubble down a little bit. So I'll click on the column line and I'm going to try to put it at the same height as the one that's over on the right. And then I can also bring in my detail here, the detail title. There. Click on detail itself and drag in the line. And the last step would be to bring in this wall section and work on getting the alignments of the levels, turning off these levels here once things are kind of in place, making sure everything is fitting on the sheet. So perhaps the best way is to kind of form all of the pieces of the detail first, and then come back and move them around. Sketch these a little bit bigger, and then use that tool that crops them. Move this one down a little bit. And working on getting the alignment correct. Using a combination of the arrow keys to nudge it and also dragging it. Make them a little smaller than they need to be first. You might need a guideline for this last one. Annotate detail line and draw. We'll make sure I'm not in the detail itself. Line across here. Everything looks to be in general alignment, and now what I can do is start manipulating the windows on this one, little crop views. So I showed you how to turn off the crop views. And we'll be adding notes, and it might be handy to keep them on, but at some point in the process, you'll want to turn them off. Okay, so that's the steel structure, and we'll repeat this process for the precast and the wood, the mass timber. So there are the 3 plan details for the precast. You'll notice that you'll bring this title quite close to that pile cap that's sitting below. So I've kind of blocked out those 4 sections for the precast one. You want to make sure that you show the full corbels here. So this is roof, level 2, level 1. I've got the pile cap showing, and I've got the bottom of the pile showing in the bottom detail. So I can continue to make a few more changes here, pulling the datums over, bringing that column number down a little bit. And I'll start working on the wall section to try to align it with this one. Okay, there is the precast sheet further along. So I'll try to make your drawing look as close to this as possible. The last one will be the mass timber project. Okay, so here's the mass timber sheet. I got the 3 plan views stacked here. Now I'm going to start working on the column section, or the section of the column. In this case, I'm going to have 3 separate details, not 2, not 4, but 3. I'll have one for the roof, one for the second floor, second level, and one at level 1. Since there's not deep foundations here, we just need 3. Okay, I've got the section at the column line kind of blocked out. You can see there are these 3 details, one at the roof, one at level 2, and one at level 1, showing the full mat foundation or raft foundation. And now I'll work on getting that wall section into place and blocked out. Okay, I've got them almost completely ready here. I think I'm going to do this one. Is bring this up a little bit, bring this up, and then I'll go to the other one, to the wall section. Bring this one up so that the spacing again is the same roughly. Okay. Now one thing you can do with this one, we don't really have any need for this datum that references the top of the footing, so you can click on that and hide that element in the view. You do that for both the section at the column and the wall section. Hide in view elements. This one is now ready, and you can proceed with creating your sheets and printing them to PDF. And just in recap, you've got drawings for A301, 302, 303, and 304.